So, let's move on to the next part of the episode, and this will be for you listeners and watchers potentially. This will be a common segment of the episode. So, behind the scenes fun. So, in this episode, we want to focus on just different aspects or even funny ways to talk about UX research. So there'll be some funny questions and ways that we can, talk about our personal preferences around different aspects of research, or even ways to describe our jobs. And we've got some interesting ones to look forward to in the future as well around UX research as starter packs and superpowers and things like that. Now, I've got a question for you, Giulia. So this is actually a common, like, let's say, joke that just UXers in general talk about. How would you describe your job to your grandma? So I want to ask you that question, Giulia. So how did you describe your job to your grandma? If you have done yet, I don't know. Have you described it to your grandma?
Actually, I did.
Ah,
It's always like difficult conversation to have, honestly,
I
especially
know.
when you talk to friends and they're maybe from more traditional fields,
Mm,
even that have the same age,
yeah.
it's quite difficult to explain it, even though they are familiar with technology. So
Mm.
anyway. But what I said to my grandma was, imagine that you are working on a new recipe,
Mm.
and before you're starting to work on the recipe, you ask pretty much everybody in the family, what they like to eat, even though we don't ask for preferences in research, but this was really to make her understand the behind the scenes. Ask them how they feel about different ingredients that you want to use
Mm.
and what will make the meal better.
Mm.
And then you cook based on, their preferences, and you test the recipe until it's perfect. And then I said, my job is a little bit like that. I'm not, of course, cooking. It's not about but I'm making sure what you see on the internet is actually easy and pleasant for
Mm.
everybody, for everyone, as much as possible. And yeah, and she
Mm.
was like, that makes sense.
Ah, there we go.
So
It worked. That's
really,
awesome. That's awesome. So
yeah, I
now
think the
she,
key,
oh, sorry, go.
yeah, I think the key is find a common ground with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
person. Are they passionate about cars, or are they passionate about food? Or, try to find a common passion or a passion of theirs, and
Mm.
try to explain the process through their lens. And
Yeah.
that ended well
No, no, I
for
really
me.
no, absolutely. And I like that part as well, to find common ground. Because yeah, I've been in the similar situation of trying to explain my job. And like you said, even to people who are my age, like it can be really hard. And it's always like, yeah, so I work with it's not graphic design, but I work with designers. I do it's called UX research, and it's always they never get it. They're always like, ah, okay, like, and they're kind of like, what do you actually do? And even if you explain what you do, they still don't get it. So I like the fact that you found common ground and you, let's say, illustrated it with something that your grandma does all the time. So she can think, ah, okay, so Julia does what I do when I'm cooking, but she does it with tech stuff. I like it. I like it. That's cool. Do you have a question for me?
Definitely. So,
Mm.
for this segment, I had one question about superpowers, right?
Oh, okay.
As UX researchers, we all have our superpowers,
Mhm.
but if you had the gift of a superpower from an higher force,
Oh,
what will be your stay?
um, there are so many that could be good as a researcher to have. Apart from maybe super strength. um, I think there's one that I always lean towards like just in life in general, being an introvert. But I think as a researcher it would actually be good, and that's invisibility. And I say that because especially for interviews or moderated tests, or even unmoderated tests. Like sometimes I notice it takes a while for a user sometimes to feel comfortable, depending on their personalities, depending on how anxious they are. And I've noticed it takes time sometimes for a user to feel comfortable. And it might even be that you have to involve that user in a few different research studies to interview them multiple times for them to feel relaxed and open up a bit. And I've also had users where I've interviewed them and it's like trying to draw blood out of a stone, which sometimes actually gives you an answer, but sometimes you're like needing a bit more because when you actually analyze maybe what users are doing, it doesn't correlate with what they're saying. So, or maybe you notice that users are just telling you, and or you get the sense that they're just telling you what you want to hear, and obviously that's not what you want as a researcher. So I think invisibility would be amazing. So if you can send a user a test to do unmoderated from their point of view, and then you're able to just go and like be in their presence, but they don't know about it. So you can actually watch them live in their own relaxed setting and how like just watching what they do and what they say, what they feel like is in the presence, in the privacy of their own home. But it's probably violating many, many data protection acts. But yeah, I think it would just be cool to do that. So you get a real sense of what users do, what they feel, and what they're saying while they're using your product or whatever you're researching on. So yeah, I think that would be my superpower if I could choose to have one. Yeah. I hope that gives you a
Um,
satisfactory answer.
yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I was thinking from my side, probably mind reading,
Ah, okay.
because somehow, it's similar to the invisibility. So we
Mm.
are same,
We
the
can
same
combine
trajectory.
we can combine forces.
But by having mind reading, I'd be able to, kind of tap into the exact thoughts and feelings users
Mm,
have in reading. So there is not a lot of guessing work or what they are really trying to say or
mm,
trying to they give ambiguous feedback.
mm-hmm.
So basically, yeah, entering their minds and seeing what's there in the most, hopefully, like user-friendly or non-intrusive possible. Because
Of course.
sometimes I feel that when you're asking, probing too much, and that's also, that might
Mm,
happen sometimes, they get defensive.
yeah,
So
yeah.
by the mind reading ability, you kind of don't need to ask a lot of follow-up question,
Mm.
just pure empathy inside stream of consciousness. So
Yeah. No, no, I completely agree. And sometimes you can, like you say, you can get that feeling from someone, where maybe they want to say something, but maybe they don't know how to say it, or yeah, they don't want to offend you, or so having that ability to be able to, yeah, just read what they're thinking is would be yeah really useful. And like you say, that you don't have to ask a follow-up question, or you don't have to ask that question that seems a bit too obvious, or there's because sometimes it's really hard as well to ask the question to get to understand or get not get the answers that you're looking for, but just get the feedback that you're looking for, if that makes sense. Because you don't want to be too leading, you don't want to obviously introduce bias into what you're researching, and something can be hard to get that right question without putting the user also on the spot as well. Because also I always find like when you're doing maybe a moderator usability test, and you ask them, oh, what made you choose that, or why did you go there? Sometimes they don't even know what to say. It's just like, well, I don't know. I just seemed logical, or I don't know. But maybe in their head, they're like subconsciously thinking something, or even if it's just an image that they're connecting to another experience that they had. If you're able to see that, and you think, okay, so they're doing that because they've used, I don't know, other products similar to before, and they use that in the same way, so they're expecting this experience to be similar, and things like that would give you an insight. So yeah, it would be hard to also for me to choose between invisibility and mind reading. They both have their pros for especially for interviews and usability testing. So yeah.
Good. So we are gearing up towards the end of the episode. We are calling our listeners to send us their question and topics about UX research. And please try to focus on the bright side of UX.
Yeah.
If you want any myth busted, or if you have pressing question about the field of UX research in general, frustration or curiosities or light-hearted debates that you want us to tackle, please drop your comments in the episode, or you can send us a message or tag us with your ideas. And yeah, let's make this podcast something a little bit light and fun and
Absolutely. Like the name suggests, we want it to be as nice as having that espresso in the morning, which I always look forward to. It needs to be just, yeah, it gives you that kick to start the day in a positive way, because we always associate coffee with kickstart, positivity, start the day well. So that's what we want this podcast to be. So yeah, if you do have questions, like Giulia said, like just leave them in, or even myths or things you've heard and you want us to investigate it. Obviously in a brighter way. We don't want to be negative on this podcast. Then yeah, as Giulia said, leave comments and tag us. We'll be happy to use your questions as content for the future.
And in the next episode, a small sneak peek of what we're going to talk about is UX Research Starter Pack, what is needed. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. And the second thing is we are going to talk about some products that failed product market fit because, well, they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do this.
And I'm sure there's plenty of examples out there.
Absolutely. Or maybe they did research, but not enough. So if you also have any product in mind that you want to share with us that failed product market fit, we can also investigate maybe the history behind.
Yes, there's always one. I don't want to spoil it for next time, but there's always one that comes to mind. But it's probably more marketing. I don't know if it's Coca-Cola or Pepsi, like the motto that they translated into a certain language. I think it was in China or Japan. I don't know if you know this story.
No.
No? Okay. I'll leave it for next time. It's a good cliffhanger. I'll tell you off air, Giulia, and then our listeners can see it, can listen to it later. Okay. I guess that's it for this episode. So yeah, thanks for listening or watching to the first Espresso UXR podcast, and we hope you enjoyed it. I was Dale.
And I was Giulia, and please take your shot of espresso, or if you would like, Americano is okay.
No. Giulia, you're Italian. You can't say that.
No.